Street Fair, Book 2 of the Fair Folk Chronicles, written by Jeffrey Cook and Catherine Perkins, narrated by Fairy Princess Lolly. Chapter 14, Rigged. The next of the barrows turned out to be some distance, but at least it got them out of the worst of the marshy, slippery ground. Maxwell was walking again, exploring at times as they traveled, but Jude continued to favor one leg and let Megan carry him, at least until they reached the actual barrow. This time, there was no hidden entrance, just a heavy stone door, long since sealed up. It took Kasha and Justin working together to get it open, and even then, took quite a while to move it. Aisling and the Count took the lead, but Aisling paused only a few feet in, having the Count perch in an alcove that once held a torch.
"I'll do my best, but this place is really warded. Trying to find a safe path through here is kind of like trying to find a haystack in a needle factory."
Megan blinked. "You mean a needle in a haystack?" Aisling shook her head.
"I meant what I said. If you're in a needle factory, there are no haystacks. And if there is one, it's probably a trick. Someone took some time putting some seriously long-lived wards in here. I suspect there's plenty of other traps too."
Kasha, as the most durable, took the lead, with the Count and Aisling each perched on a shoulder, doing their best at guidance. Aisling guided them around the trigger for a deadfall, but missed the poison needle trap. Kasha's armor deflected most of it, but 3 needles stuck into her skin. Lani immediately set to removing them, trying to discern what was on the needles, but Kasha, after a moment, shook her off. "It'll be fine. Stings a bit. Stings a bit." "But the poison," Lani started. "Satyr," Kasha said, "this is no worse than a really heavy pub crawl on Cap Hill." Lani and Megan glanced at each other, then moved to follow Kasha. It wasn't all that long before Aisling called them to a halt again, having the Count take her to a specific spot on the floor.
"Okay, everyone, watch carefully. Kasha, you're taller, so you can get the good cereal on the high shelf. And also, stand in back so they can see."
The pixie dismounted.
"There's a hollow floor there, and there, and there. Just step on the spots I step on."
Aisling made a huge leap from one floor stone to another, then another one. Megan tracked which she landed on, and took careful steps across.
"Great,"
Aisling said eventually.
"Now, not one step closer until Lani deals with this thing right here."
Lani looked. Yeah. The markings look like it might be another deadfall, but covering the whole hallway. "It's going to be hard for us to find enough space to sleep," Megan said. Lani rolled her eyes. "I can at least try to see about dismantling millennia out-of-date technology before worrying about having to use magic." She knelt and peered at the wall for a few moments before Kasha just smashed away a thin portion of the stone. "That should make your life easier." "Huh," said Lani. "It wasn't a deadfall after all. It's some kind of elaborate spike trap." "Just when you think you know what to look for." "Whoever designed this place was seriously paranoid," Megan said. "And clever," Justin added. "Most of these don't stand alone. For most people, avoiding one of them would lead you right into the next." Lani finished her work disabling the trap. "I'd really appreciate studying this place, if it weren't trying to kill me."
"We're almost there,"
Aisling said, starting to move again. "Better than GPS," Lani said, "and works underground."
"Through that door,"
Aisling said a few turns and twists later, pointing to another heavy-looking stone door. She paused in looking it over, shining brighter.
"They're not even trying to hide the wards on this one."
Indeed, the door was heavily marked with twisting symbols. "Easy enough to deal with that," Cassius snarled, smashing the door to mar the symbols, not giving Lonnie or Justin time to shout a warning. As she hit it, the floor fell away from under them. Most of the group hit the stone floor beneath heavily. The cats seemed to have a better time landing on their feet, while the Count managed to lift off and grab Aisling before she hit the ground. Kasia was back on her feet in an instant. The teenagers took more time about it. No one was able to get out before the former floor, now their ceiling, closed again some 15 feet above their heads.
"I'm sorry,"
Aisling called, brushing herself off and starting to scan the room, which had no signs of any doors, or much of anything but bare stone, and some darker stains on the floor, amidst a few flat bits of metal and fragments of bone.
"I don't know how I missed that one."
"It's okay, Aisling. The wards were probably hiding that, not protecting the room. Another trick. We just need to figure out how..." She paused as a grinding noise echoed around them. How to stop the walls from closing in on us. That's probably more immediate than getting out." The walls didn't move especially fast, but were definitely moving. Kasia's efforts to push back made no difference. Likewise, even with the Sword of Light and the satyr's strength, the walls resisted efforts to do more than scratch them. Kasia seemed to feel only slightly better about this when Lonnie suggested that the wards probably had something to do with that, too. Seconds passed, with the walls continuing to grind. Megan, and even Aisling, made efforts to help with the pushing, while Lonnie studied the edges, looking for flaws or gaps. She finally found a couple points where the stone had worn down, but wasn't able to do much with it, and the gaps turned out to be much too small for even Aisling to fit through. Just as it was getting hard to breathe in the cramped space, Justin jammed the Sword of Light between the walls, and the indestructible sword turned out to be good to its reputation, holding them apart just enough for people to stand and move slowly, though Kasia, and to a lesser degree Justin, had to squeeze a little, and only the cats, the Count, Aisling, and Lonnie had any hope of getting past anyone. "What now?" Megan finally asked. "One of three things," Lonnie responded, trying to use the time to continue searching the walls for anything that might help. "Either the mechanisms pushing the walls break down, we run out of air, or..." She gestured to where the tip of the sword had begun being driven into the wall, despite its resistance, though barely perceptibly so far. "Or the sword eventually gets pushed in like a nail, and we get flattened anyway. I don't like those odds. Aisling, you open stuff all the time. Can you do that here?"
1. Wards.
"Big ones."
2. That's windows and stuff. If I had a dozen pixies here, sure, but..."
She went very quiet. Megan spent a few moments looking around, finally settling on Lonnie. "Can you figure out how to shut it down?" "In theory, with enough things to make the right tools from, and time, but not while you're all awake."
"But you could do it if you had some stuff to work with and we were sleeping?"
Aisling asked. "Sure, probably. Manahune thing. But I think everyone is a touch high stress, and if anyone wakes up, I'm done." Aisling pointed to Kasia.
"Give her your breastplate. Spare metal bits. Anyone have candles?"
Kasia started in on removing the armor, while Lonnie dug into her bag and offered up 2 candles, looking confused. "Those are good to have in emergencies. This better be important, though. I was serious about running out of air."
"Very important,"
Aisling responded, setting up the candles with some help and having Lonnie light them.
"We can't have you falling asleep. Everyone but Lonnie, get as comfy as you can."
When Lonnie continued to look confused, but spent time laying her tools out anyway, the pixie continued.
I'm going to help Megan with a lullaby.
Cool, Megan replied, despite the situation. Anti-magic, winged and cold stuff, inspiration, healing, and now putting people to sleep? Is there anything bardic magic doesn't do? Aisling gestured up.
Absolutely terrible for stopping stone wall traps.
Point taken. Finally, Aisling seemed content with the candles, collecting hot wax and rolling them up, offering it to Lanny.
Earplugs.
Everyone settled as best they could, and the pixie started to guide Megan through a new song. It took a while, and as they worked it out, the sword visibly shifted a couple of times, pushing into the wall about an inch. Megan did her best to shut out the grinding and focus on learning the song. At first, she was sure nothing was happening, aside from the sword shifting another half-inch, forcing Kasha to shift again, and leaving things tight enough Lonnie would have to crawl over people and hope the music was enough to keep them asleep if she needed to get to any other part of the room. The cats fell asleep first, followed by the Count, and then Justin. Megan felt her own eyelids getting heavy, and did her best to let the song take her too, despite being the one casting. She kept singing when Aisling quieted, going still, using Megan's stomach as a pillow. And then she heard soft snores from Kasha's direction, before Megan drifted off as well. She was shaken awake by Lonnie, urging her to hurry. The ceiling had opened and the walls had moved apart slightly, letting Justin free the sword. Kasha made the 15-foot leap upward, and then held the other end of the rope Lonnie had drawn from her bag, easily holding on while the others climbed out. How did you do that? Megan asked once they were free, and Lonnie triggered the floor closing again. Sort of a cross between opening a locked car with a coat hanger and convincing the trap it had closed all the way. Sorry about your armor, Kasha. I needed all the bolts. Kasha shook her head. I figured I can get more made, but if you really want to get my clothes off, Lonnie, there's easier ways. Lonnie sighed, trying to turn her attention to the warded door. At least you still have a couple layers on. You are wearing a wrap, right? Another death trap or two and some good wine, and you can find out. Lonnie finally found a safe point to stand and had Justin mar the wards with the sword from there. It didn't take long once they were destroyed for Kasha to force the door open. Inside was a burial chamber much like the others, ornate, full of old treasures, but the body was missing. The dust had been disturbed, and the weapons rack had opened spaces where the sword and shield were supposed to be. The room was also full of rolled-up parchments. Lonnie immediately turned her attention to those, while the others looked around. I guess he already left. Where do you think he could have gone? These might have some kind of clue, but I'm not sure, Lonnie said, with one parchment unrolled on the raised alcove where the body had been laying, delicately unrolling another. I think they're maps, but all marked up. I can't read them, and I'm not sure what all these lines and arrows are. Kasha perked up, moving to look. Tactical maps. Rick has a copy of this one, from the perspective of the other side. Guessing this guy is some kind of strategist. It would make sense that some of Balor's officers would be, Justin agreed, moving to study the two open maps. So after all that, we just missed him? Megan asked. But we should take these maps and try the last place on our map and hope for better luck. These are really old, but they might give us some clues. The group packed up as many of the rolled up parchments as they could and carefully made their way back out of the burial chambers.
Hello friends, this is Gunther Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!